Portuguese noblewoman whose husband had come to England to speak at Parliament this week, and of course, plenty of whores at his favourite clubs and at private parties with their friends. It had become a tedious task to scout for candidates at every single social occasion, at every morning walk in St. James's Park, but he did it. It was his duty to his brother, to their family. Father had been pushing Hugh to marry for years, to prepare to take on his role as the Earl of Reeves, but Hugh had refused. He was much too busy enjoying his long-time mistress, the very married Duchess of Oakley. However, upon discovering their father's deadline for marriage, Hugh promptly broke things off with Her Grace and set on a course for hunting down a bride and marrying immediately. Great wealth was a mighty motivator. The crowd was thick here tonight. So many making merry, as if the pleasure gardens offered something so incredibly fresh and novel. He liked being out of doors, rather than inside a crowded ballroom or someone's home, but he'd grown accustomed to Vauxhall's offerings, and weary of the endless procession of well-dressed people he knew and knew of. "Montclare?" William Treharne, an old friend from the country, dipped his head at him as he and his wife, Amanda, walked past. She caught his eye, lifting her chin as she shot him a sharp look, dripping with disdain. He averted his gaze. Since their dalliance had ended badly almost 2 years ago, Charles had shown Amanda only indifference, and she had shown him that cold disdain. He'd known her and William forever. They'd all grown up together in the country. Amanda had been the prettiest girl, the most accomplished, the wittiest, and the vainest and arrogant. She had been almost engaged to his best friend, Brandon. But when Brandon's father had suddenly sent him on a trip to the West Indies, she'd gotten impatient and bored, and married his cousin, William. Charles had found her to be exquisitely challenging at the beginning of their brief affair. She'd made it quite a game between them. He enjoyed games, and together they played a number of them. But then one of those games hurt Brandon and his new wife, Justine, which led to Brandon and his cousin William having a terrible falling out that had never been repaired. Charles had not been proud of the consequences of his selfish actions, and that was when he'd broken off with Amanda. He'd kept his distance from her and her husband ever since. But Amanda enjoyed casting him a dismissive look or a sardonic comment in society. He knew it gave her a sense of power to do those things, for she was attempting to maintain a connection between them, a bitter one. He knew she could not fathom a man no longer being consumed with her, especially one who'd ridden her. He brushed all those thoughts away and kept his focus on the delightful girl in the distance. Fireworks burst and crackled in the sky over them. Laughter and shouts rang out, and she turned her face upward, laughing at the artificial starlight over her. Beautiful. He'd like a bite of her himself. Charles groaned inwardly. He recognized the young lady she was with. Alice Dunsmore, who he knew all too well. She was the stepdaughter of his Aunt Vivian. His aunt had wanted Hugh to marry Alice, but Hugh had refused, and rudely so. "Are you joking? I cannot marry that." Alice was not pretty, yet she was not too plain a creature. A somewhat giddy and very innocent girl, she had a chirping laugh that both Hugh and Charles found irksome. She smiled shyly, blushed often, and could barely hold a conversation worth having. Alice and her friend were greeted by a male. He knew that male, another childhood friend from Gloucestershire, Thomas Hackleton. Thomas took Alice's arm in his and entreated the perfect girl to do the same. He knew her. She turned at last. A red-hot poker pierced Charles's chest. Well, I'll be damned. The perfect girl, the exquisite young lady, the splendid woman, was none other than Thomas's sister.